Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My name's Maggie, I'm 24 and I work at Pine Ridge National Park. It's usually a dream job, beautiful scenery, friendly co-workers, and a chance to help people enjoy nature. But lately, it's turned into a nightmare. A few days ago, I was restocking supplies in a visitor center when my walkie-talkie crackled to life. It was a park manager and he said, "Maggie, please report to the main office immediately." My stomach dropped. Getting called to the office was never good news. I made my way over, trying to remember if I'd done anything wrong recently. When I got there, I found Mr. Nick and Mrs. Patel, two of the upper management, waiting for me. Mr. Nick says, "Come in, Maggie, close the door behind you." I did as I was told, my hands shaking slightly as I sat down. Miss Patel says, "Maggie, we need to ask you something important." Then Nick says, "Do you have any Concerta?" I blinked, sure I'd misheard them. "I'm sorry, what?" "Concerta. Do you have any?" "Could you repeat that one more time? I'm not sure I understand." "Maggie, we're asking if you have any Concerta. It's a medication for ADHD. My blood ran cold. How do they know about my prescription? How do you know about my medical information? That's not important right now. We just need to know if you have any. I don't understand. Why are you asking me this?" "Look, Maggie, we're in a bit of a tight spot here. We could really use a couple of pills." "It's completely up to you, of course. We're just asking as a favor." But the way they were looking at me, the tone of their voices, it didn't feel like I had a choice at all. "I guess I could give you a couple." "Excellent. Could you bring them to us now?" In a daze, I nodded and left the office. I walked back to my dorm room, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some kind of weird dream. But as I grabbed my prescription bottle, I knew it was all too real. I returned to the office, my hands shaking as I opened the bottle and tipped 2 bills into Mr. Nick's outstretched palm. "Thank you, Maggie. We appreciate your discretion in this matter. You can go now." I left the office in a fog. It wasn't until I was halfway back to the visitor center that the reality of what I'd just done hit me. I ducked into a nearby restroom and locked myself in a stall, where I broke down sobbing. What had I done? I'd just given away prescription medication. That was illegal. I could lose my job, my prescription, even face criminal charges. And for what? Because my bosses had asked me to? The next few days were filled with anxiety and guilt. Every time I saw Mr. Nick and Miss Patel, my heart would race and I'd feel like I was going to throw up. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I could think about was what I'd done and what might happen next. One morning I was working the information desk when Mr. Nick approached. "Maggie, I need you to stay late tonight. We have some special inventory to take care of." The way he said special inventory made my skin crawl. I knew he wasn't talking about counting trail maps. I tell him, "I don't think I can. I have plans." "Come on, Maggie. After how helpful you were the other day, I thought we could count on you." There it was, the threat, thinly veiled but unmistakable. I felt like I was going to pass out. "Okay, I'll stay." "Good girl." As he walked away, I realized I couldn't take it anymore. This had to stop. But what could I do? If I reported them, I'd be admitting to my own crime. If I didn't, who knew what they'd ask me to do next? I was still mulling over my options when my coworker Peter came up to me. "Hey Maggie, you okay? You look kinda pale." "I'm fine." "Sure? You seem pretty stressed lately." I wanted to tell him everything, but I was too scared. What if he judged me? What if he told someone? "It's nothing, just tired." "If you say so. But if you ever need to talk, I'm here." As Peter walked away, I made up my mind. I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I needed help. That night after my shift ended, I drove to the nearest town and found a payphone. With shaking hands, I dialed the number for the park's HR department. "HR rep, human resources, this is Jenny speaking." "Hi Jenny, my name is Maggie. I need to report something." "Okay Maggie, take your breath. What's going on?" It's about Mr. Nick and Miss Patel. They asked me for some of my prescription medication, and I gave it to them. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I say, Maggie, thank you for coming forward with this. Can you tell me exactly what happened? So I did. I told her everything. How they called me into the office, how they pressured me, how scared and guilty I felt afterward, and by the time I finished, I was crying again. Maggie, I want you to know that you've done the right thing by reporting this. What Mr. Nick and Miss Patel did was completely unacceptable. And while I understand you're worried about the consequences of your actions, the fact that you were coerced by your superiors will be taken into account. What's going to happen now? We will need to conduct a full investigation. I'm going to ask you to come to the HR office tomorrow morning to give a formal statement. In the meantime, don't discuss this with anyone else, and try to avoid Mr. Nick and Miss Patel if possible. Okay, thank you, Jenny. One more thing, Maggie. We have an employee assistance program that provides confidential counseling. I think it might be helpful for you to talk to someone about what you've been through. Would you like me to set up an appointment for you? Yes, please. I think that would be good. After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time just breathing. I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I knew there would be consequences, knew that the next few weeks or months would probably be difficult, but for the first time in days, I felt like I could see a way forward. The next morning, I drove to the HR office. As I walked in, I saw Mr. Nick coming out of a conference room looking pale and angry. He glared at me as he passed, but didn't say anything. I took a deep breath and stepped into Jenny's office. Good morning, Maggie. Are you ready to give your statement? Yes, I'm ready. As I sat down and began to tell my story, I knew I'd made the right choice. It wouldn't be easy, but I was finally taking control of the situation. But whatever happened next, I wouldn't have to face it alone. Over the next few weeks, a lot happened. The investigation confirmed my story, and Mr. Nick and Miss Patel were both fired. I had to meet with the park's legal team and give a statement to the police, but because I had come forward voluntarily and had been coerced by my superiors, I wasn't charged with anything. I did have to agree to attend the drug education program and submit to random drug tests for a year, but I kept my job and my prescription. The counseling sessions Jenny set up for me were incredibly helpful. They gave me a safe space to process everything that had happened and work through my feelings of guilt and anxiety. I also learned some techniques for setting boundaries and standing up for myself in the workplace. Things at the park started to get better. The new managers were much more professional and respectful. My co-workers, who had been told a sanitized version of what happened, were supportive and understanding. And I found that I was actually enjoying my job again. One day, about a month after everything had gone down, Peter caught up with me as I was leaving work. Hey, Maggie, how are you doing? I'm doing okay, actually. Better than I have been in a while. I'm glad to hear that. Listen, a bunch of us are going hiking this weekend. Wanna come? I hesitated for a moment then smiled. You know what? That sounds great. I'd love to. The situation with Mr. Nick and Miss Patel had been awful, but I'd gotten through it. And now, I was ready to move forward and enjoy my life again. My wife and I decided to buy the house next door. We've been living in our cozy little home for years, and when our old neighbors put their place up for sale, we jumped at the chance to expand our property. Little did I know this decision would lead to the most terrifying experience of my life. It was a sunny Tuesday morning when I signed the papers for the new house. I remember feeling excited as I walked back home, keys jingling in my pocket. As I approached our driveway, I noticed our neighbor Karen standing at her fence. She was staring at me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. I tried to be friendly, waving as I walked by. Morning, Karen. Did you just buy the Johnson's house? Her tone caught me off guard. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation. Yeah, we did. It's a great opportunity for us to… How could you? You knew I wanted that house. I was taken aback. Karen and I had never been close, but we'd always been cordial. This outburst was completely unexpected. I'm sorry, Karen. I had no idea you were interested in buying it. Don't lie to me. You must have known. I've been talking about it for years. I racked my brain trying to remember any conversation where she might have mentioned wanting to buy the Johnson's house. Nothing came to mind. Karen, I honestly didn't know. If you were interested, why didn't you make an offer? Her face turned red and she clenched her fists. Because those greedy Johnsons wanted too much. They knew I couldn't afford the ridiculous price. I didn't know what to say. It wasn't my fault that we could afford the house and she couldn't. I tried to defuse the situation. Look, Karen, I'm sorry you're upset, but what's done is done. Maybe we can. You'll be sorry, alright. You have no idea what you've done. With that ominous statement, she stormed back into her house, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a moment, puzzled by her reaction. Then I shrugged it off and went inside to share the good news with my wife and son. The next few days, we started planning renovations for the new house and discussing how we connect the two properties. My son, Tommy, was over the moon about having a bigger yard to play in. I almost forgot about Karen's strange behavior until I noticed her watching us from her window. Every time I looked over, she quickly ducked out of sight. It was unsettling, but I tried not to let it bother me. A week after we bought the house, I was in our backyard with Tommy. He was helping me measure for a fence we planned to put up between the two properties. Karen suddenly appeared at her fence, her eyes locked on Tommy. He's a good boy, isn't he? There was something in her voice that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Yes, he is. Tommy, why don't you go inside and help your mom? I waited until Tommy was safely inside before turning back to Karen. Is there something I can help you with, Karen? You took something precious from me. That house was supposed to be mine, and now you're going to know how it feels to lose something precious. Before I could even respond, she disappeared back into her house. I stood there, a cold feeling settling in my stomach. Something wasn't right. That night, I told my wife about Karen's strange behavior. We agreed to keep a closer eye on Tommy and to avoid any interactions with Karen if possible. The next morning, I woke up early to go for a run. As I was stretching in the driveway, I saw Karen leaving her house, and she was dressed all in black and carrying a large duffel bag. When she saw me, she froze for a moment, then hurried for her car and drove off. I thought it was odd, but I didn't dwell on it. I should have. God, I should have. I returned from my run about an hour later. As I walked into the house, I could hear my wife calling for Tommy. Tommy, where are you? This isn't funny. The panic in her voice made my heart race. I rushed upstairs calling out for my son. Tommy, buddy, are you hiding? We searched every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot, but Tommy was gone. As the reality of the situation sank in, I remembered Karen's words from the day before. Now you're going to know how it feels to lose something precious. My blood ran cold. I returned to my wife, who was on the verge of tears. Call the police, now. While my wife made the call, I ran next door to Karen's house. I pounded on a door, but there was no answer. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The police arrived within minutes. We gave them Tommy's description and told them about Karen's strange behavior. They immediately put out an alert and started searching the neighborhood. Hours passed with no news. My wife and I were beside ourselves with worry. Then my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. Hello? Hello, neighbor. Missing something? My heart stopped. Karen, where is Tommy? What have you done? I told you. You're going to feel what it's like to lose something precious. How does it feel? Karen, please. He's just a child. This isn't right. Neither was you taking my dream home. I waited years for that house. Karen, listen to me. We can work something out. Bring Tommy back and we'll talk about the house. It's too late for that. You can't undo what you've done. Where are you? Let me talk to Tommy. Oh, he's fine. For now. But you better hope the police find us soon. Who knows what might happen if they don't. And the line went dead. I immediately called the detective in charge of the case and relayed the conversation. They started tracing Karen's phone and put out an Amber Alert for Tommy. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. My wife and I couldn't eat or sleep. We just sat by the phone waiting for news. Friends and family came by to offer support, but nothing could ease a knot of fear in my stomach. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we got the call we'd been praying for. They'd found Tommy. It turns out Karen had taken him to an old cabin her family owned in the mountains. A hiker had recognized Tommy from the Amber Alert and called the police. They surrounded the cabin and managed to get Tommy out safely. When we were finally reunited with our son, I couldn't stop hugging him. He was scared and confused, but otherwise unharmed. He told us that Karen had told him they were going on a special trip and that we knew all about it. She'd kept him in the cabin, telling him stories about how we didn't want him anymore because we had a new house. As for Karen, she didn't go quietly. When the police tried to arrest her, she barricaded herself in the cabin. It took hours of negotiation before she finally surrendered. In the end, Karen was charged with kidnapping, child endangerment, and a host of other crimes. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The whole ordeal left us shaking. We installed a top-of-the-line security system in both houses and spent a lot of time in family therapy. Tommy had nightmares for months, but slowly we started to heal. As for the house next door, we eventually decided to sell it because, well, the memories associated with it were too painful. We used the money to take a long family vacation and to start a college fund for Tommy. Looking back, I still can't believe how a simple decision to buy a house led to such a horrifying experience. It's a reminder that you never really know what's going on in someone else's mind and how far they might go when they feel wronged. We're doing better now, but I'll never forget those terrifying hours when Tommy was missing, and I'll never take my family's safety for granted again. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night needing to check that Tommy is safe in his bed. I suppose that's a small price to pay for having him back with us safe and sound. So there is a new house construction on a lot next to mine. Moving into a new development 2 years ago, I knew I'd have construction around me sooner or later. As expected, there is a new house getting built on a lot next to mine. Bit of a bummer for me seeing construction started on my first day of vacation, but what can you do? Noise hours in my town are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. during weekdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and no construction or industrial noises on Sundays. Despite this, they work from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. The town's doing nothing because a sole inspector is on vacation. Police don't care. Anyway, we're the kind of town where police response is measured in days. Neighbors have lodged official complaints. I tried talking with the builders, but to no avail. Thursday, I walked outside to see them using my exterior outlets for their air compressor and other tools. I had a talk with them and the general contractor was extremely rude. Eventually, he apologized and told me it wouldn't happen again. Yesterday, I came home late in the evening after being out all day to see multiple extension cords plugged into all my exterior outlets. The builders had already left, but the cords remained. I turned off the breakers. I should have thought about it sooner, to be honest. I took the extension cords to my parents' place. 5 very nice 100-foot exterior grade 12-gauge cords. Dad kept 2, my brother took 2 home today, and the last one I'm giving to friends who could use a better one. This morning at 6 a.m., the builders came knocking for their cords. I don't know, bro. I haven't seen them. Anyway, you're not supposed to use my power. Didn't the general contractor tell you? Cue whining and complaining. The front door neighbor came in clutch and started berating them for bothering me and leaving their tools outside. Are they foolish or what? Don't they know we have copper thieves around here? So they waited until 9 a.m. until the town's only hardware store opened and bought new extension cords. For what, I don't know, because my breakers are still turned off and will remain so as long as construction is ongoing. They came back with new cords but no power from my house, so they left, having nothing to do. Today I spent my time installing my new security camera around the house just in case. Anyway, I've been meaning to do it. We do have serious theft issues around here.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.